You can look wherever you want.
Okay.
You can look at each other. You can look at the lens.
Okay.
Oh. Let's see. All right. Well, thank everyone for joining us live today on this Friday evening. It's a beautiful night to be in the studio with some awesome artists. So, thank you for joining. My name is Lily Brutger. I am the art coordinator at Art in Motion on the Lake Wobegon Trail in Holdingford. This is a business that is owned and conceptualized by the wonderful Greg Consor. It is his birthday today, so happy birthday, Greg. I would like to acknowledge where we are. We are on colonized Ojibwe and Dakota land, which is now called Holdingford in Minnesota, or Minnesota Makoche, as it was originally called. And it is very important that we say that because we're talking a lot about space today. I'm here with two incredible people, incredible artists, Heather Lamanno and Dan McAvey. Is that correct? These two people have been staying with us at Art in Motion on an artist residency through a partnership with the Minneapolis College of Art and Design, or MCAD. And I would like to thank Ellen Mueller and MCAD for making this program possible and successful. We've had a really fun time with the MCAD students, and we hope we can do it again next year. Dan and Heather have been with us exploring Holdingford, working in the studio and out on the trail since the beginning of August. And we have installed some of their older previous work in a pop-up exhibit in our gallery, also accompanied by the Holdingford FFA restored tractor. It is a 1940s Ford, I think 9N model, if anyone is curious. Tonight we'll be talking with them kind of podcast style to learn more about Heather and Dan, their art journey. And so without further ado, Dan and Heather, would you please introduce yourselves, who you are, where you're from, and then give us a little elevator pitch about your art.
All right. I'm Dan McAvey, and I'm an artist and an art educator from the Twin Cities. Currently, I'm a graduate student at the Minneapolis College of Art and Design, and I'm starting my second year in that program. And I'm a painter, and in my practice, I most often like to explore color and light, and some of the ways that I explore color are by using bold colors, but also some of the ways that I explore color are by stripping away the color and trying to make something nearly monochromatic. And then in some of my more recent work, I've been exploring memory and the transient nature of memory, but through the permanent medium of painting.
Wonderful. Hi, everyone. My name is Heather Lamanno. I am an artist and educator living in the Twin Cities. I'm originally from Kansas City, Missouri, and I've been here for about 3 years now. I'm a graduate of the MCAD MFA program. I'm also teaching at Augsburg University currently, and really glad to be a resident here at Art in Motion. I am an interdisciplinary artist. I create paintings and also work with molded concrete to create landscape installations. I explore landscape through both of those mediums, thinking a lot about psychological space and how structure can be a metaphor for self, and also just creating moments where the viewer can find themselves within the work and find moments where they can connect their own, uniqueness and experiences in the landscapes that I present.
Thank you. That was so beautifully said, both of you. So thank you for that introduction. Now let's dig into some questions. We have some more complex questions, and we have some fun, silly questions. Piper wants to say hi, Dad.
Yes. Hi, Piper. Yes.
So The first one is if you could tell us about like your art backgrounds, like how long have you been making art, who influences your work, some of the big moments maybe in your career. I know you both have had a maybe what they say non-traditional, but just a different journey than the average MFA student maybe has that goes from high school to undergrad to graduate school right away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can jump in on that. As you said, I've had quite a non-traditional journey. It was 10 years from graduating high school to graduating with my BFA from the Kansas City Art Institute. When I was there, I was a young single mom, and it was really interesting to try to mitigate what it meant to be working on understanding what my visual language was and what my artistic voice was, alongside really just being immersed in sort of an everyday family life. And so family has always played a really big role in my work, because it's always sort of had to mold around involving everyone and making it happen regardless. So, and then 10 years later, I decided to, with the support of my family and my wonderful husband, pursue my MFA career, or my MFA studies at MCAD. So I made work for quite a long time in between my BFA and gaining my MFA, and continue to really just kind of push through and work to understand what it means to have this life. I'm going to quote Tom DiBiaso, of art and design, and kind of being committed to how meaningful that can be for, just my family, and also kind of sharing that with other people. So that's a little more of a general idea, I guess, of my journey. So
what was your first like idea that this art thing is my thing, like this is like what I want? Like when did that kind of come together?
I think,
like, what was that magic moment where you're like, I love art?
I'm gonna
stuff.
Yes,
we talked about that
right.
we're makers before
artists, because I think that term artist, sometimes it frightens us a little bit, because that means you have to be at a certain level of technical skill, or to show your work or to share it with others. And I really think that the making and the process is just as important, if not more. But I think I would like to say in response, is that I knew from the youngest age, I just like to make stuff. I like to make stuff for people, and I loved it. But I think something that we face often in wherever we're from and what kind of family demographic we are, grow up in, that you like art, but what are you going to do for your real life or your real job? And I think that that's something really deep that a lot of artists struggle with and enjoy even. So for much of my life, it was struggling with knowing that's what I wanted to do, but also realizing that maybe that's not what I should do. So it was always kind of there. But I would say definitely, when I made the decision to go to the Kansas City Art Institute, it was a huge leap of faith on my part to just do something that made no logical sense in the grand scope of being a parent. And there was a moment in that program when I really felt like I was learning how to think, and what it meant to have a concept, and what it meant to have a voice. And I was gluing playing cards to the floor in my studio to create this like graphic design. And I also had this like painting that I thought, I'm working on this painting. And my instructor, David Harrison, came in, and he just looked at the floor, and he looked back at me, and he was like, that's really honest. You should look at that some more. And I think through that process was when I was sort of like, okay, like I feel like I get it. I get something here. And I want to share that. So that's probably that moment for me.
That's like a really great thing for a professor to say.
I think
that's something really that, in college it's hard to do honest work because you're trying to please someone else. At least that's how I felt.
It's got to be smart.
And when you're trying to it's got to be smart. It's got to be good. I don't know. Just you're getting graded on it, even though I don't think anyone really gets bad grades on art.
Well, and it's like, too, we're struggling to understand something. It's like watching someone learn how to ride a bike.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, do you really want
process.
someone over your shoulder? Like, look at you fall. Did that feel good? And but you need to do that, I think, to really get to a spot where you kind of understand what it is you have to say, and really engaging that empowerment, and realizing that what you have to say is important, no matter who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So,
thank you.
Yes.
In some ways similar to Heather, but different as well. A non-traditional art experience, at least for me. I went straight from high school to college, but I was a psychology major in college, and then got a master's degree in educational psychology, and worked in higher education administration for close to 20 years before deciding that kind of coming back to art, which is something that had been a part of my life, certainly through childhood, but then hearing those voices of doing something practical, and that was made a career choice that was practical, and then finally came back to art late in life. And so just in the last probably 5 years, I've been more serious about making art and making sure that it was a real part of my life, and not just something that I daydreamed about, but making time to do it. And then also with the support of my family, then making the decision to then pursue the Master of Fine Arts degree, with the goal that hopefully I can teach at the college level when I'm done, teach art at the college level, and to then help students to learn, figure out their own path through art making as well.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a wacky question to follow that up.
Yes.
What is your favorite material or tool?
Or both.
Or both.
Or both. Yeah.
We do have a question in the comments from Laura Collins. Is that true?
I know her. Yeah.
Who's asking Heather what her favorite color is?
Oh, my favorite color.
And Kayla says hi. Also.
Oh. Okay. Oh, yes. My favorite color. Oh, there's so many. But I used to always rely on purple because I loved that it could be cool and warm. But I sort of am a lover of all colors. Orange is great, especially cones. I don't know, anything that just any piece of color that doesn't quite fit wherever it's at. That is my answer. Laura is usually the one I'm going for. Yeah.
Nice.
Anyway, tool and medium.
Yeah, favorite tools and mediums and materials. For me, oil paint is my favorite of the paints to work with, although I work with acrylic paints quite a bit as well. And tool, recently I've been using a piece of, which I had one handy, of archival corrugated cardboard, basically. And I've been using that for lots of things. Sometimes I use it just when I need to make a straight line. Sometimes I've been using it to scrape away paint, and that can be a really cool, neat tool for when I want to, like with some of my recent explorations in memory of making a painting and then swiping it away with the piece of archival board. Then it can make some really interesting effects in kind of deteriorating the image. So it can be used both to apply paint and to remove paint, and to make straight lines. And it's a neat little disposable tool that I like.
Nice.
I love acrylic medium. I really love the way that it can alter the pigment and the body of paint, and it is magical for me to sort of play with and make it do things that I didn't think it might be able to do. So I love to experiment with medium and probably use it incorrectly, in all honesty, but that surprise is really wonderful. And then for anyone that likes to make straight lines in painting, Nichiban tape. I got a wonderful advice from another artist, and that tape is magical, along with flexible plastic palette knives, which really helps get a nice, crisp, clean line when you like it.
Ooh.
Yeah, those are some of my faves.
I love that question because I don't know, I always learn a new thing, and like with the residents and like their tools that they like, and like the different materials that they're using. And like at Sketchbook, I think we probably talked for like an hour last week about different things. And for me right now, it's the temper paint stick.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
they're just the best. But also, like little scrapey things and like those little objects that you can't really just buy at a craft store. Some of them are the best.
Yeah.
That's so good. That kind of leads into what sort of wacky things, places, visuals, objects are really fascinating to you that maybe come through in your work, or maybe they're just something you really like. That's like, my phone's full of that content.
I would say structures, building and process, the inner workings of buildings, but also I kind of mentioned it earlier, just a movement, a moment, a color, or something that seems to be having like a characteristic where it doesn't quite fit, or it's doing something that just catches me off guard and makes me feel like I've been looking at these waning trees. They sort of bend over like rainbows. And something about it was just very humanistic, and or traffic cones, or just a blue bucket in the middle of the forest. I don't know, just something that doesn't quite fit. And it's to me that's what I really just love and look for, especially when you're an artist and you're busy with family and always doing something else. It's like you're like, doing this, I'm in the family circuits at school, it's this, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, look at that beautiful array of cones on this, on the side of the road. Like, should I stop and take a picture of that? So those moments are what I sort of live for. And to be a complete nerd, because I keep getting texts, I just want to say hello to Roxy, Elena, Mazarine, and Drew and Jace, my children, and Daniel, of course. So sorry to insert that in the middle, but they're texting me, and I want to make sure to say hi. So thank you for letting me do that.
Of course.
I think in response to the question about wacky stuff, I think both of us kind of respond to the unusual, like looking at structures, but not necessarily in the like the typical way that one might look at a building. Or I'm thinking about just the other day, like there was some cool bridges along the Lake Wobegon Trail, and of course you weren't looking at the top of the bridge. You went underneath, and you were crawling around underneath and finding the structure that undergirds the bridge. It used to be a railroad bridge. And similarly, oftentimes when I'm looking at buildings, it's not the like the kind of overall pretty structure, but zooming in on some detail that is that probably isn't pretty in its own right, but trying to find what is it that's cool or unique about it. So
because it's just, I think there is something, especially with people, because like sometimes I paint landscapes too, or like go and it's a way to bond with the landscape, but it's like, so it's almost like frustrating when you find like something that's like not right. You're like, that's not right, but also then it's like, but that's the coolest, most interesting part of it. So with all that in mind, you guys, we all installed this exhibit of your work 2 Mondays ago. Last Monday, one of the recent Mondays.
Yes.
Which is a lot about structure, and you titled your show Structural Navigation. How did this show come about for you, like in your personal bodies of work that are in there? What was like some of the background to those? And then how, when you put the work together as like a duo in this dual exhibit, how did the structural navigation kind of conversation happen? If you have any comments on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I keep getting this. Yeah, I'll jump in and give a little on that. I think that, being an observer of the world and our everyday environments, and really honing in for quite a while on, the process of becoming, and being just sort of mindful of not what I'm expecting in the future for something to be, but what it is at that very moment, sort of relates, I think, just to being a person. And I see that in structures, and when I'm looking for inspiration for work. And for me, it's also, finding these moments within the work that are really small, as a place for the viewer to sort of contemplate, but also find some kinship with. And I would think, as we were putting the show kind of together, that was one similarity that we noticed, just these sort of small, intricate moments of color, maybe, or maybe a bit within those geometric structures that we sort of want people to find a moment with. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, indeed. Certainly there's these, we both were attracted to, like you said, those kind of unique moments within a structure. And part of most of the work that I have in the show is from a wayfinding project that I did about how buildings can serve as navigational tools for sailors or pilots, or I suppose anyone in some ways. And how the red beacons on a building serve that kind of function as a lighthouse. And so that's where some of the navigation part came into the structural navigation piece, at least for me. And some of that also ties in with our current moment, and especially within the last year of having so much alone time, where we aren't able to connect with people outside of our houses or homes. But that beacon kind of still shows you that even in a desolate landscape, there's still someone out there, and someone who's doing something to show you the way and help you find the way. And so within those structures, there's still some a sense of, or an idea of movement, and even in that very solid object, they're still moving through it in some ways.
I think too, I just want to add, like, thinking about that navigation part, maybe, some of the work that we've been doing since we've been here is sort of navigating our visual tendencies and our language, but also trying to respond to where we're at, and sort of integrate that experience along with what we would normally do. And so we've had some conversations about that, and some of the paintings I know I have done are a little off the cuff from what I normally would do, kind of trying to sort of give over some of that control and respond to sort of an emotive experience with the landscape. And then also with the installation, collaborating with the lovely Lily, but seeing how, our objects that we use and the material that we use, but, giving that over and seeing how someone with a different eye and more sensitivity to, say, a rural landscape would take those parts and pieces and put it together. So I think that's kind of where the navigation also plays into how we put it all together.
I really like, we didn't really know what work was going to be in the show. We assumed that we were going to have a show and that it was going to go up and be up for 2 weeks. And like, I knew kind of what your styles were going into it. It was like, this is going to be really interesting, like 2 different takes on like space and structures. But it turned out to be like a really beautifully curated exhibit together, and with the tractor too.
Yes.
Tractor, yes. There's a tractor.
That's important, it's going to be on PBS.
Yes.
Yep.
I mean, when do you ever get to have an art show with a tractor in it?
Mm-hmm.
That's a beautiful color gray, which I think matches perfectly.
It does. It matches the art. I was just a little nervous that we'd get like green or something. I'm like, there's no green in this show.
I mean, it's just serendipitous.
Yeah.
I mean, we could be done now. We could just be done.
Yes.
Tractor and done.
Yep.
No, it's an interesting show. So we're here on this residency. What were your expectations? What was like the goal that you wanted? How did that kind of, I mean, we're on last 2 days of residency, really. What has it been like?
I would say that something that's been really unexpected is how much time we've spent really talking to the people here that come into this place. And, I just feel like we're doing that all day long, but it's been such a really interesting experience. Just how excited everyone who comes in here is to be here and to have this place here in Holdingford, and that excitement feels very sincere and genuine. So to sort of be a part of that, and kind of come out of our Twin Cities bubble and be out here and really share things with people that are excited to learn about what we're doing has been an unexpected part for me. Besides that, just making as much work as absolutely possible in this little, fabulous, magical gift of time away from our families, and really knowing that for one moment is kind of the most important thing in my day is something I've never experienced before, and I'm really grateful to have done. I'm just making a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Certainly a goal for me has also been to just make a lot of work and try to spend as much time painting as possible. And specifically for me, a goal was to spend as much time painting outdoors as possible, which has been a small part of my practice, but am wanting to make that a bigger part of my practice. And so trying to develop that aspect of my working style and figuring out what works well and what doesn't work well for getting outdoors and painting. And so I have to mention it because it's one of my favorite things coming into the residency was that I built the bike trailer out of my daughter's crib. Hello, Piper Teagan. And so I throw my art supplies in that and go tooling off down the bike trail. And that's been a fun part of the residency is being able to bring a full on art studio with me out on the bike trail. It's maybe a little heavier than I expected it, so I don't go quite as far as I was expecting. And thanks to Heather for rescuing me the other night when I pedaled out too far and was too tired to come back after painting. So,
I think that brings up a good point, though, because we were having a discussion the other day, and one thing that at least I was talking about, I think we had a common ground, was with being here and being open to the experience influencing the work that we make, but also giving ourselves a little bit of permission to be vulnerable and try things that I've never tried in my work, like using organic line with the medium and making a lot of mistakes and some moments where I'm like, well, that did not go as I expected, But I think kind of being here in this space and this moment, it feels like a safe place to do that. And I think going out on the trail and painting outdoors and, we've kind of done that. So.
Yeah, and that's a nice thing about being in a residency, I think, is that there's not a specific end result. And so we can try and fail and try something else and fail and have some successes and just try and try until we're done. Until it's time to go home. Yes. And then we go home. And so that is one of the great freedoms that a residency gives is through that gift of time of just being able to make as much stuff as you can and seeing what works and seeing what doesn't and learning from both of those processes.
I just wanted to comment on here that the photos that you're all seeing scroll are pictures from the exhibit, from the residency. A good amount of them were pictures that Heather and Dan took for inspiration when they're out adventuring in this area. A big part of this residency is to go and explore the nature. That's a big aspect of our mission here at Art in Motion, is to get people outside. Greg, his project this week was to pave a trail through the woods, and hopefully that will be added onto the things that we offer here as a walking path and maybe haunted trail. And so I hope you guys are enjoying those images. I didn't really label them, but like you were seeing Dan's navigational paintings from the gallery, and also their workspace and things like that. So that is what you're seeing.
Yes, we're currently sitting in the studio section of Art in Motion. So this is when we're not out exploring or out working in nature, this is where we end up doing a lot of our painting and ideating and eating lunches sometimes.
Yes, a lot of people. I've kind of, to the residents that have been here, I'm like, you're kind of like our zoo animals. Like, you're like, people come and they're like, who is an artist? What is an artist? And then they get to come and meet you people, and you can be like, I'm an artist.
Yes.
Come see me work.
Yeah.
It's probably it's a really vulnerable place to be, especially when you're exploring and trying new things that you're like, I'm not sure if I like what I'm doing, but I'm doing it anyway. And like, don't look at it. Like, I'm working on this silly sign thing, and like, it makes me so self-conscious. People like looking at it, and I'm like, it's not done yet. Can you talk about like what kinds of, like, how communication comes through in like your work, either like what kind of message you want to communicate with your work to your audience, or any aspects about like talking with people? I know you touched on it a little bit, what it's been like with people coming in and sharing their enthusiasm for art, but any thoughts on that?
I think for me personally, it's very visual. I really am just always trying to create some kind of space where there are moments of recognition that the viewer can have. So kind of a pivot point and maybe a prompt, a visual prompt. Then the other moments where ambiguity is playing a much bigger role, so that they can have enough information to sort of make some judgments, but then enough space to insert themselves and their experiences, and maybe just sort of find something new within the work. So that's sort of how, at least visually, I try to communicate. For me, honestly, though, I think talking about art and talking about the importance of, developing visual language and empowerment through making, and how anyone can be a maker, and that the process of making is as important to really sit with and indulge in as it is the end product. Like, that is so much, I guess, for me, more where I'm really interested and excited to reach people. So maybe the art is sort of a catalyst for that conversation. But that's really kind of where the meat and the heart is of my practice, is just kind of sharing those notions.
And I think your work leaves that space in a good way for people to interpret and understand and approach things in their own way, and to ask questions, which is really fun to see people come in and engage with the work in that way. And for my own work, especially the work that I've been doing these last couple of weeks, it's been talking with people about that shared excitement for whether it's the space here at Art in Motion or the space in that environment around here, and people that are riding past on the bike trail when I'm set up on the side of the trail.
People ask you questions when you're out there?
Yeah. Well, yes. It there've been a few who stopped and said, "Are you okay? Do you need help?" And I'm okay. That's usually before I've set up my art supplies. Thankfully, nobody's asking that once I'm like mid painting. But yeah, I probably could use help then too. But yeah, people are very interested, and they'll stop and ask about what I'm doing and how am I approaching this scene. And of course I'll talk with them about their residency here at Art in Motion, and everyone that comes by will share a story about how much they love this place and this space and how thankful they are that they have this space. And that's been a lot of fun. And oftentimes people too will say, oh, make sure you check out this place on the trail or that place on the trail. It's just a little further ahead, and they get duped into biking an extra mile or 2 miles or 5 miles, and which is good for me, they say.
You're hitting 2 birds with 1 stone.
Yes. Yeah.
Fitness and art.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Good
Well
for mind and
done.
body. Yep.
Yes. There's a lot about the body today.
Yeah, we did.
Body movement and art, like how that's really important to remember. That's like an important part of art is the body. Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like I had thoughts and I forget. So I guess we're getting close to the end of my list. So I have some more wacky kind of rapid fire questions. We do have one on the chat that I'll start with. Who were your favorite artists growing up? Before, who should we add to our posse of artists to be aware of?
For me, one that I always mention, and this is a common one, but John Singer Sargent, I really love his work. His ability to capture light influences, especially, is, I think, very striking, and also his ability to capture fleeting moments in a lot of his paintings is just really unique to me, or at least he's very masterful at that. One of the paintings that had the most impact on me is at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston. And it's this huge painting, and I forget the name of it. I think it's El Jaleo or something similar to that. It's this huge painting. It's like 9 or 10 feet wide, of a woman dancing, and it's just like the ability to capture movement and that, again, that fleeting moment within an enormous painting that obviously took much longer than a fleeting moment, but the way that he communicated both movement and light within that is very striking to me.
As a kid, I was just sitting here thinking, and I was like, who? As a child, like today, I'm like Paul Noble, Diana Al-Hadid, but I guess I'm really gonna say like Calvin and Hobbes.
Yes.
And maybe like some Far Side, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know. Like when I was young and I was just interested in drawing, like I love that the humor and just the I don't know, like that's probably gonna be my go-to answers there. And of course I did, have a crush on Salvador Dali, not personally, but the work. I do like any work that's just like, wow, that's weird. When I was a kid, I was like, that's weird. I like it. Why did they do that? So, but Calvin and Hobbes.
That's a good one.
Children's book illustrators and comic artists were
huge because you're copying, right? You're looking at things and it's like, I want to make something that cool,
right?
And so you're, which is a great way to learn, I would say, for any young artist. Whatever you see that you like, take moments from it, try it out on your own, and see what happens. It can be really inspiring.
Yeah, I definitely had a lot of animal books that I would copy the animals, or like little nature guides.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Fun question.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
I guess we have some comments that I'll read off. My mom has some nice comments. Ellen Mueller says she loves the pictures of the streaky floor under the cement forms.
Yes.
Ellen, our floor is always dirty, except only in the gallery. Greg does a really great job of mopping in the dining room. What is the best time of day for creativity for you?
Whenever it fits.
It's
like a Jenga Tetris thing, and all of a sudden there's a little empty spot, and it's like, whoa, I'm gonna do something. That's how I do it. I don't know. What about you, Dan?
For me, I notice that the periods that I am most productive tends to be evening time or late afternoon to evening. which is challenging because, like Heather, I've got young kids, and so evening time is often when there's also the most the most things that need to be done at home. So coffee in the morning can help with that, or other
or
ways
coffee
to
at night.
or coffee at night, yes. Ways to kind of ramp up the productivity, even if it's not the time that my body or brain might be most naturally productive.
I found for me, it's like it definitely is a Jenga. Routine is really difficult to figure out. But the evening is a good one for artists, like late night. But then it's like it's a different kind. I can't work like meticulously if it's like late at night. It's like it has to be like 10 a.m. to noon. Those hours for meticulous work. The rest of the day for chaos. Speaking of best artists that maybe I already asked this question. This is a more deeper question. Best advice you've received about your art career?
We talked about this one. I'm just gonna share a really quick story, but it was really meaningful to me. And at the Art Institute, and if you know me, you've heard this one, I apologize, but I was sitting around at a table with some fellow students and Professor Michael Walling, and we were like head over heels, concept, painting was dead, and the work was so much about the academic idea and these, just really understanding what it meant to make art, and the object was kind of secondary a lot of times. And so we were all talking, and my friend Travis Morstead was at the time pumping liquid fat in and out of fish aquariums. And so we were all problem shooting this and sitting around and very serious about it. And it gets very quiet. And Michael Walling just looks at Travis and says, Travis, there's still room for beauty in art. And it was just a small moment. It wasn't, I don't know at the time, I just thought it was really funny, but that has really stuck with me in my art making, and it's something that I think has helped me develop my practice, because I think the idea is incredibly important, but I also think that sharing moments of beauty is equally important, and that people can equally value that. And so that was just a really meaningful moment that has stuck with me all these years.
I remember that.
Yeah.
It's such a great beauty is like the essential gateway into a piece of art. Like if it's not beautiful on some level, like
and I think
is it going to communicate?
Yeah, and we all have different ideas of beauty, but I really think that that's sometimes where craft can play a role, because it doesn't have to be that I, Heather, see this and this is beautiful to me and it's not to you, but sometimes by the medium, the texture, the color, the craft, like that's where I think it can be, universal for, in a sense.
Yeah.
If anything could be universal.
And sometimes that can, and that story sticks with me too. I think in part selfishly, because oftentimes beauty is something that I'm striving for in the work that I'm making. So that's meaningful to me. But sometimes beauty can be the thing that makes a piece of work magnetic, and that keeps a person engaged in the work.
Yeah.
And if you can't get a person to engage with the work, then they're not going to see what the meaning is behind it or the content, whatever that might be. And so I think oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes trying to find a way to make it beautiful in some way. And like you said, that can be different for everyone. But I think that's that can be a really helpful way for getting your message across, whatever your message might be.
Yeah, and for other artists, that might be offending. It might be to grab someone and make them feel vulnerable, or to feel some, sort of animosity within the material, and that's equally relevant and equally effective. But I'm into a little beauty.
Yeah.
I love that.
And for me, the piece of advice would be from my mentor, Anne Leibovitz, who said, or who will often say or ensure that I'm just trying to be intentional. And that can be as simple as being intentional about the surface that you're working on, or the size of surface that you're working on, or the colors you're choosing and where you're placing colors. that certainly every choice within your piece of work should be an intentional choice. And I think that's really good and helpful advice that I certainly have to think about a lot.
I think that one's, that's one I think she probably told me too. Together we told the students this past spring. There's some more questions on the computer.
Okay.
Ellen asks, what is next for each of these great artists? Any shows or events we should look out for?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Would you like
I actually have a show that's up right now at the Northeast Sculpture Gallery Factory, which is next to Casket Arts in Northeast Minneapolis. It's only open for like 2 more days, but there's I made 16 new paintings for the show, and I collaborated on an installation with my husband, Daniel Lowe, which was really fantastic. So it's a nice little bit of work, and you can see that. And right now it's hitting the books and jumping into teaching classes for me. But I know you have a show coming up as well.
Mm-hmm.
The Suitcase Gallery?
Yes, yeah, I've got a couple of pieces right now at the North Suburban Arts Center. I think they just recently changed their name from Banfield Lock, so I think it's North Suburban Arts Center. But then coming up in the fall, I have a show at the Suitcase Gallery at the MCAD campus. And then also in the fall, I have a show in the library at the MCAD campus. So those will be 2 different shows. One of them, the library show, will incorporate a lot of the work that was in the current structural navigation show. But then the Suitcase show is going to be all new work. Some of the pieces I did work or create during this residency, but otherwise it'll be all new stuff that hasn't been shown before.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. My last question on the list, which correlates with Greg's question in the chat, is he asked, what is your favorite meal at Boho Cafe? And my question is just, what's your favorite studio snack?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It's all about food here.
Well, it is a cafe,
Yes.
in fairness, so food and art.
Food. And I didn't go together.
Right. Well, that's actually true because you would die.
You'd die.
I think probably the 2 for me. One of them is the Green Goddess flatbread, which I think is delicious. Mm-hmm. It's not available every day. It's one of the specials that comes up. So keep an eye out for that. And then I am also a big fan of just the chicken salad sandwich. I think they do a really good job.
It's such a good recipe. Cindy is a kitchen wizard.
Yeah.
She's just amazing.
Yeah.
And that is her family, or her personal, I don't think it's a family recipe. I think that's a Cindy recipe.
Nice. Well done, Cindy.
Yes.
It is delicious.
Really yummy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Cindy scones.
Yes.
Everything's great. The soup's great. All this, everything I've tried, I've really liked, and I like that there's a variety enough that when I approach the counter, I can, really find something a little different. But I'm a spicy girl, so I do like the wrap with the chipotle mayo. And also, it's very veggie, which I love. So whatever the name of that is.
That is the mountain bike.
I was going to say it's something about a bike.
They're all bikes.
Yes.
I love that one.
Except for the chicken parmesan. It's just called chicken parmesan.
Yeah. I don't know. I think there actually was a name, but then it was just we're just going to leave it.
We're just going to leave it.
It's descriptive. It lets you know what you're getting.
Yeah. I think it was supposed to be like a fat tire bike or something like that. Yeah. I forget.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Studio snacks. What's your favorite studio snack?
I think my favorite is going to have to be, and this isn't necessarily a favorite, Pop-Tarts.
Yes.
And it's got to be brown sugar cinnamon.
What?
Yes.
Oh, my girls love the s'more Pop-Tarts.
Oh, yes. Piper
Same color, different flavor.
Yeah, that's true. Piper was a s'more, and now she's a brown sugar.
Now she's a brown sugar.
And for me, it's got to be toasted. I mean, I'm not a room temperature Pop-Tart kind of guy. It's so much better when it's warm.
Toasted's best, but Pop-Tarts are like the perfect put it in your backpack.
Yeah.
Later in the day.
Kind of like pizza, only not the backpack part. You
Yeah.
can eat it at any temperature, and it could be equally good.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think Pop-Tarts are best if you eat them upside down so that the frosting hits your tongue, like, and just you get that sweetness. Because what's the point if you're not tasting the frosting?
Look at all this Pop-Tart knowledge we're
Yes.
sharing. Like, this is mind blowing.
I don't even think about which way.
I don't either.
Yeah, I mean, it's
They're just
designed to be
good.
one way, but
The
I
crust
like
is
the
my
s'mores,
favorite. I don't know.
The hot fudge sundae Pop-Tart, I think. That one's just dessert, honestly. It's basically.
Yeah.
The strawberry Pop-Tart's really good too. Basically.
with frosting or without?
Of course. With
Yeah, I mean, really,
How
what's
would
the
you
point?
eat a.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, my studio
Yeah.
snack. Oh gosh. Anything with a little bit of spice and heat to it. My husband's been making like hummus like crazy at home, so we've been eating a lot of that. Palak paneer from Trader Joe's is a go-to. Usually it's just like whatever is close that will fit in my mouth
Yes.
without silverware.
Yeah.
Right.
Probably
And then
gonna
there's,
be
like,
it.
The crumb.
Or like
issue.
leftover
Yeah.
food from the kids, like whatever is
Oh.
left over from dinner, and you're just like, or lunch or breakfast or any of the 500 meals they eat during the day. It's like a snag. Whatever I could snag off the counter is kind of my studio snack, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's the dilemma and that tension between like eating something that's like gonna make your fingers have crumbs and
Right.
sticky, like popcorn or chips,
Oh, yeah.
or do I eat something that's not gonna make my fingers sticky?
Yeah.
Or do I just like?
Or do I just get another cup of coffee?
Yeah. Someone told me their tip a while ago is that they eat like they have chopsticks with their laptop, so that they can like pick up their cheese balls with the chopsticks.
Good.
Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Yes.
You know more about Pop-Tarts and eating cheese balls while working on your computer than you ever have before. Take notes, people.
Yep.
Oh, the joy.
We have some comments about that. Ellen is really excited about the Pop-Tart controversy.
Yes.
Daniel Lowe says, pro tip, flip the brown sugar Pop-Tart upside down and put butter on it.
Oh,
Snap.
That's my guy.
Yeah.
Given the pro advice.
Thanks, Daniel.
Dan and
Yes.
Daniel.
Yeah. Is it warmed at that?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
This is the first I'm hearing of this. It must be like
Buttered
something.
Pop-Tart.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
Oh my gosh.
Butter on it.
Let's try
Yeah.
that out.
Right. So the next talk will be all about facilitating studio snacks.
Yeah.
Studio snacks.
Mm.
I think we talked about this before this podcast, but a podcast that I'm really obsessed with is the Jealous Curator podcast, and she has a whole sub podcast called Paint Chips, and she just talks with artists about chips. That's it. And they're like an hour long. I listened to one on my way to work the other day. It was so good and
That's
motivating.
amazing.
It's like, okay.
You know, I think something we can learn from all of this is that sometimes we just need to stop taking art so seriously and talk about Pop-Tarts.
Yes.
Yes.
And
he says, of course, it's
chopsticks.
warm.
Yes, very good. Good.
Of course it's warm.
Thanks for that clarification.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
This has been enlightening.
In many ways.
Thank you, Heather.
Yes.
Dan, for joining us live. Thank you all on the computer, on the internet, for joining us for your Friday night. The artists and art in motion.
Oh, and don't forget.
Oh, yes. Tomorrow we are having a closing reception from 4 to 6 p.m. or I guess whatever time.
Yeah.
Music starts at 6 p.m. So
Come see us. Come see the work.
them, come see
And
the studios
what else is
tomorrow.
tomorrow?
Oh, I will be doing a workshop from 11 to 2, which is drop-in, playing with color, basically just having fun with art and butterflies, and join me for that as well.
Thank you to CMAB for sponsoring.
Yeah.
So, thank you, everyone. This has been fun. Hopefully, we learned things.
About art and other things.
Yes.
Indeed.
I learned about how to eat a Pop-Tart.
Yeah.
I learned more than that. All right.
Okay.
Goodbye, all.
Bye. Thank you.
Yep.